Calgary real estate prices continue to climb, and that's why people are flocking to townhomes and apartments. So today we're at this townhome and we're going to cover the liabilities and things you need to consider behind the scenes and just see if it's a good long-term investment. There are a lot of hidden costs and potential liability when you're buying a townhome, and a lot of those costs are actually located in this room, the mechanical room. So unlike most apartment buildings that'll have a central mechanical room, townhomes typically have their own. So you're responsible for maintaining your own hot water tank, furnace, and humidifier. This is a high efficiency furnace. What you can tell is the intake and the exhaust. If it were mid efficient, you'd see a metal exhaust. And honestly, these really suck. So these produce condensation unlike a mid-efficient furnace, and it collects condensation in a heat exchanger. It collects vapor in the heat exchanger from the cooled off combustion gases rather than venting the gases out the flue. But why do they suck? They're more efficient, they're newer, they should last longer. I say that they suck because the life expectancy compared to the old mid-efficient ones has been less. They produce condensation which is very acidic and then can rust out the frame and other components, and in general, we've had a whole lot more issues with these high efficiency ones compared to the mid efficients. Every component in your home requires service. So when we're looking at the furnace, ideally we're replacing these filters every quarter, so every 3 months. I like to use these really cheap filters. They're almost semi-translucent, and the reason is then the furnace is not working as hard. When I'm replacing the filters every few months, I also like to open everything up and just make sure that there's no condensation leaks or any other damage happening. This furnace is almost 10 years old, so we hopefully have another 5 to 8 years left in its life with regular maintenance. But if we were to get a service tech out and they were to say that a heat exchanger were cracked, that's it. We have to replace that furnace because now we're leaking carbon monoxide into the home. So the cost to replace a furnace this size for a townhome is typically going to be around that $5,500 to $6,500 range, depending on the brand and who's installing it. All right, so there's a lot of different hot water tanks that you could have in your townhome. It could be an old mid-efficient, a high-efficiency one, or even a tankless or electric hot water tank. This is an electric hot water tank, so some pros and cons. So pros are gonna be that it's gonna be super cheap to replace. It's gonna be about 1/3 of the price of a high-efficiency tank, and now we're not running an exhaust outside, poking holes in the exterior of the building. But the con is going to be that this is gonna cost a little bit more per month to run versus a typical gas hot water tank. For regular maintenance on a hot water tank, you are supposed to flush it every 6 to 12 months to get that sediment out. I would say about 1% of people actually service their hot water tanks. This hot water tank is almost 10 years old and it's nearing the end of its life expectancy, but it's still running great. So we're definitely not gonna replace it. I know it hasn't been serviced, but it's gonna cost anywhere from $900 to about $1,100 for the replacement of this hot water tank. Some townhomes, majority of the new ones, are either roughed in for AC or already have ACs installed. And I know you're thinking, Calgary's not the climate that typically sees super warm weather, but when we do, this is gonna save you from running fans 24/7. The AC is another one that a lot of people miss on the maintenance side of things. So realistically, we're gonna be a little bit limited on the consumer side of what we are able to do. First off, during the winter months, I always recommend to cover the AC unit. It'll protect it from the elements. The second thing I like to do is just make sure that the pad is level. So a lot of these rubber pads or even the concrete pads, over time, they do settle, and the parts in here are gonna wear out a lot quicker. And lastly, I like to make sure that the condenser has about a 1 meter free and clear. I know a lot of people like to plant trees or shrubs in and around it. Realistically, this thing needs to breathe, and then a lot of the leaves and branches can get stuck in the fins or even in the fan. The professionals can come in and maintain and service the AC coil, check and refill the refrigerant levels, clean the blower, and this could extend its life by a very long time. When it's time to replace your AC unit, we're gonna be in that $4,000 to $5,000 range because the lines and everything else have already been run. But when you consider the AC, the hot water tank, and the furnace, we're gonna be in that $12,000 to $14,000 range, all within the next decade. Every component of a home has a lifespan, so you knowing how long things are supposed to last and how old they are gives you the ability to budget and understand how much service is gonna be required in the next few years. When I'm looking at the exterior of any apartment complex or townhomes, I'm looking at what could cause potentially a special assessment in the next 5 years or so. And what a special assessment is when a component fails or fails earlier than expected, it goes to the reserve fund. If the reserve fund, the money that's been saved or allocated for future repairs or updates, when that amount isn't enough, they have to dip in and ask everybody to contribute to that repair. So knowing that the buildings in this complex were built in the last decade or so, I know that the roof probably still has another 50% or more of its life left. The siding is hardy board, so we're not gonna have to worry about that. And the windows should have plenty of life left. But I'm always gonna check the south and west facing windows because they're typically gonna get the most amount of sun damage. I hate these decks and balconies. And the big reason is, this is where most of the special assessments come from. So big thing with elevated decks, just like this one, is there will be settling over time, and this could shift a deck, causing you to potentially have to repair or replace it. The other thing is, because it's wood and we're in Calgary, these do require regular maintenance, so staining and painting. I have seen absolutely horror stories from large apartment complexes that have had to redo all their balconies and decks, and we're talking prices falling anywhere from 20 to 30% in that complex, and then additionally you having to contribute another $10,000 to $30,000 on top of that for special assessments. The driveways, the concrete work, the retaining walls, these are all other components that could fail and could cause a special assessment. So right now this is in great shape, but I've been to complexes even within Walden where they may see large special assessments because they've had retaining walls fail over 10-15 years. So a lot sooner than what they expected, but they're gonna be paying for it now. So this is one of the big considerations I have when I'm helping a client purchase a home or when I'm looking for personal investments. I don't want to get fancy. I don't want to see a koi pond. I don't want to see a waterfall. I don't want to see all this intricate landscaping, because down the road, I know that's going to be a special assessment. I know that's going to be a whole lot of work. So keeping it super simple is keeping it safe when it comes to these large townhome or apartment projects. The condo fees in this complex go over maintaining the exterior, the landscaping, improving it, and also the reserve fund. Knowing the reserve fund and the financials of any complex is super important. Yeah, you can hire a professional and you should hire a professional to get it reviewed, but you should also know what they're reviewing and how it's being interpreted. If you're looking at the reserve fund study and you're seeing that all the decks need to get replaced next year and it's been budgeted for $2 million, and you're looking at the reserve fund, it's only $1 million, you know that's probably gonna have a special assessment next year. After buying the property, you're the one that's gonna be responsible for it and have to carry it for a very long time. So these are some of the documents that I recommend that you try and receive before you write an offer, or wait until you go CS or under contract, and these are the first documents you should look at. The reserve fund study, the audited financial statements, the AGM, and the past 12 months of meeting minutes. And the disclosure statement. So that one's gonna be super important because it's gonna disclose what the monthly contributions are. They're gonna disclose that there's no lawsuits above $5,000 and that they don't have a special assessment planned or coming up. There's a lot that goes into buying and selling any property. So if you need help in Calgary, please reach out to our team. We've helped thousands of clients in the last few years. We'd be more than happy to help you.